What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here. This right here is a potato, and this is a shark. This particular model is the Shark Rotator True Pet Powered Liftaway, model NV75x. This was the Shark vacuum that introduced the powered liftaway function, and it's, well, a machine that's been around the market for quite a while. So the question is this legacy model still one you should consider? You can still find it for sale all over the place, not only on the secondhand market and refurbished, but you can find it brand new as well. You can find it on Amazon. I will link it in the description. So the question is, should you still consider this for your $300? Well, we'll find out. So, anyways, starting off, I've been using this machine for the last few days in order to give it a full test run, and I've actually used it after repairing it because this machine had to be repaired because of a pretty bad design flaw, which I will address in a sec. In fact, I'll just address it right now. And the biggest reason why I actually wouldn't recommend this machine actually doesn't have as much to do with the performance of it. The performance of it is fine, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But the main downfall and drawback with this unit is the Powerhead design. And I'll show you this right now. When you recline the machine, which can be done just by stepping on the front of it, you can see the little shoe right there. So you step on the front of the machine and it reclines, fairly typical, right? But right here, we can see this design right here. There's this swiveling joint which swivels in two directions. You have the main pivot point right here, which pivots in this housing, and then you have this pivot point right here, which turns back and forth. So both of these joints right here is what turns it into a swivel neck. So you can see you can swivel this pretty easily, and that works very well. The problem with this is that not only is this plastic right here very thin and very fragile, and it's the type of plastic that's, even though it's very, sturdy feeling in terms of it doesn't flex a lot, that's actually bad because this is the type of plastic where when it does flex, even the slightest bit, instead of it being flexible and absorbing any sort of flex, the plastic will crack and snap. And that's what happens a lot on these units. It's part of the reason why these units were in most areas discontinued. You can still find this on Amazon. I believe you can find it at, it was either Macy's or Kohl's, I forgot which store it was, but there's a few stores that you can still find this at. But why it's mostly disappeared off of Shark's website is because of this design flaw. Not only does the actual plastic spine right here break, but this internal hose is also very fragile and very prone to breaking, especially as the device ages. And now that in of itself wouldn't necessarily be a deal breaker if you could get the part, because if this breaks, you obviously have to replace the entire cleaner head housing, because at that point you would have to replace the neck, the hose, and this entire housing. At that point, the only thing you could reuse would be the motor and the brush roll. Now, the problem is that this machine, depending on where you get it, is supposed to have either a 5-year or a 7-year warranty. And the worst part is that Shark will often sell this machine to you, advertising that you have their, I forgot what it was called, but it was their higher end warranty, the VIP service guarantee, that's what it's called. So, sorry I blanked on that for a sec. But even if you buy this machine with the VIP 7-year service warranty, Shark will not allow you to collect on it, because even if you paid more money for this SKU with the higher end warranty, you still will not be able to use it. That warranty is useless in every way except for the suction motor. So if this motor fails, or if the cord fails, if anything on this main body fails within the 5 or 7-year period that your particular warranty may have, Shark will cover it no problem, and they will easily send you the part at no cost. But if you have any problems with this power head or with anything else on the machine, so if the wand breaks, if the hose breaks, or if the connectors on the inside short out, depending on that part, Shark may not cover it, because Shark has decided to consider mainly the power head. This is the most important thing because this will be the most expensive part and the one that's the most likely to break. Shark considers this a wear item, even though it is factually speaking not a wear item. The main housing of the vacuum is not a wear item. That's something that should easily last the length of the warranty. But Shark has decided to maliciously disclude this from warranty coverage, meaning that for the multiple consumers that have had this machine, specifically this area, break on them, in some cases in less than a year, they were forced by Shark to pay over $100 out of pocket to replace this entire cleaner head assembly, and in some cases had to pay for shipping as well. That is unacceptable. In fact, I can speak from experience with that because I bought this machine, admittedly secondhand, but still under warranty. And this part was snapped. Now, the interesting thing is Shark will try to get out of that by stating, wait a minute, well, brush rolls are considered wear items. Which, sure, some brands, in fact many brands, consider brush rollers themselves to be wear items. So what Shark does is they will not allow you to remove the brush roller. They will use special screws to hold this together and not provide the brush rollers available. They will say you have to buy the entire cleaner head because they don't sell parts of parts, as they say. But instead of that, going the other direction and saying, okay, if you have to replace the head, you get a new brush roll because it's all one part, and, you know, making that not a wear item and making that something that would be covered under warranty, they do the opposite and say if the base breaks, even if the brush roll works fine, which in the case of the part that I replaced on this, the brush roller worked fine, the motor worked fine, the brush roller worked. It's just this part wasn't actually connected. So Shark basically refused to honor the warranty, even though the device was still under warranty. And I had to call them several times and get several representatives on the phone before they finally covered the machine. And that I need to say right out of the gate because that's the most important flaw with this machine, and it's the one that you are likely to have if you have this machine. So be very careful with that. And if you do have this machine, be very careful. You don't want to break this part. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time trying to get taken care of and get your machine back up and running. Because parts are not available for these. You cannot find parts unless you happen to get lucky and find someone parting one out on eBay. And even then, don't go that route. Just get Shark to provide you one, because that's going to be the way to go. Especially if you have the higher end warranty. Hi, Boot. Oh, okay, bye. So, I want to get that out of the way, because that's the biggest flaw with this machine. And that's the biggest reason why you wouldn't buy it. That's at least the biggest reason why I wouldn't buy it, because that's not a very good track record, especially for something this expensive. Even if $300 seems cheap by comparison, I can buy a $60 Bissell Power Force and nothing will ever break on it, and I can use it for 20 years without any problems. This Shark, not quite. Now the good news is that when this Shark is working, it's actually a surprisingly decent vacuum. Apologies for the camera shaking. I don't know why my hands are so unstable right now, so I'll put this on the tripod real quick. So, this machine, how well does it work? Well, the good news is that it actually does work pretty well. Like I said, I've been using this for a good period of time. Sorry, that's my knee. And this machine has been treating me very well. I've been very careful with it. I've been making sure to baby it so that way I don't have any problems with that breaking again. But the performance of this has actually been pretty good. We can see that it's actually pretty full of hair because this brush roller down here is very aggressive, and it actually does a pretty decent job at grooming the carpet and getting stuff out of the carpet. Now, it doesn't do quite as good as my Dyson, the Dyson Ball Animal, but it's pretty close. And I actually kind of feel like it's a little bit too aggressive because this machine appears to be very overly aggressive on carpets, and I've seen a lot of people say that these machines clean well because they see this machine tearing up their carpet fibers and assuming that that's, excess dog hair that was left behind. And that's not necessarily the case. A lot of this stuff is carpet fibers. If you actually look closely, a lot of this stuff is carpet fiber and not actual pet hair. So it does a good job at removing the pet hair, but it kind of will remove more than that. So if you have fragile carpets, or if you're worried about your carpets lasting a long time and not being artificially shortened, then this would not be even close to my first pick for a vacuum. Something like a Dyson, or even the more expensive Shark Apex, which actually isn't that much more, doesn't tear up carpet nearly as much. Now, I actually don't think the Apex cleans as well as the Rotator, but the Apex also doesn't tear up your carpet, so there is a trade-off there. And there actually is a sweet spot between these machines in terms of carpet cleaning performance, and that's unfortunately the non-liftaways. So for whatever reason, these liftaway sharks, these powered liftaway sharks I should specify, are very polarizing in that regards. You can either choose the one that doesn't clean carpets quite as well, but does great on bare floors, or you can choose the one that's very aggressive on carpets to the point where it's going to tear up your carpet. So, if you want the powered liftaway function, then that's going to have to be that. Or if you love this machine and you like the idea of it and you don't need the powered liftaway feature, then, or you just don't need, you want the liftaway feature but you don't need it to be powered, then definitely check out the standard version of the Navigator liftaway. I know this is out of frame a little bit, because this machine I reviewed plenty of times, and the current XL version of this that comes in a green color you can get for only $100 right now. So if you don't need the powered liftaway feature to go underneath beds and all that stuff, then this will actually clean carpets better than this, and it won't be as aggressive on carpets. And because this isn't powered, there's a lot less to fail on this. That swiveling neck problem is not a problem on this, and even if you do split the hose on this one, the hose is a lot easier to change. So personally, this is my pick for the $100 Shark. And another reason why I personally don't recommend this machine is because of how heavy it is. Now, I mentioned this power liftaway feature, and I'll demonstrate that real quick. So there's this gray button right here at the top. There's this little gray button. You push it, and this entire canister pops off. This is the whole point of the power liftaway feature, is that you can hold the entire vacuum and motor assembly, and all this stays together. This is essentially like a canister. So you can essentially use this. You can hear how much the plastic creaks on this. So you can use this effectively like a canister. But you can get a little trolley to hold this, but out of the box you're just going to have to hold this. And this is very heavy. This is about 9 pounds. So it's a good amount of weight you'd be holding in your hand. And it does work though. So you can actually turn this on, and it does in fact work. Now the way that you turn this machine on, no matter what mode it is you do have fingertip controls right here, and you have 3 selections right here. The top selection is for thick carpets and area rugs. This is for carpet, and then this is for hard floors. I prefer to leave it on the thick carpet mode because that opens up this valve and lets a little bit more airflow through and makes it a bit easier to push. So push this. So you can either use it like this, or if you want to use it in the normal way, you click this back on here. There's a little hook right here, which you put right there in the handle, which is a little awkward and it gets knocked out a lot, but it is there. It's better on the newer units. You have a cord clip right here that you can put the cord in to keep it out of the way, although this gets knocked out a lot. This isn't very reliable. And you can now use it like an upright. So the vacuum actually isn't too loud, which I do like. It does appear to have some sort of sound dampening in it, and it does a good job in making it not too painful to listen to. I also do love the LED headlights on the front. That is an excellent feature. And that is something that the more generic variants that I showed you didn't have, although both of these styles of navigators do have variants that you can buy at added costs with headlights, but they're a bit harder to find. So this does have those LED headlights, and those are nice. One thing I've always said about vacuums with LED headlights is it would be nice if there was an option to shut the lights off, so that way both the people who want and don't want headlights could both be happy, and they wouldn't have to make separate variants. And it'd be nice because you could turn them off when you don't need them and leave them on when you do. So it's a bit weird. I don't know why vacuum companies don't do that. It's either all or nothing. You either have them or you don't. And not only do you have LED headlights on the front, you also, if I press this release button right here, there's a little silver release button right here. You push this, and the hose comes out. Now this is a very large hose. This is not very comfortable to hold. I've noticed that because of how big this handle is and because of how much this weighs, it gets straining on my arm to use the tools. So, and this is the same problem with every Shark, but on these bigger units it's even more. And again, this whole thing, it just doesn't, the build quality just doesn't feel good. But you can see there's connectors in here. You always want to check up on these and make sure these are good. There's connectors in the wand as well. You want to make sure these are good. If for whatever reason this isn't working, you want to check those. You also want to make sure this is in all the way, or else it's not going to turn on, because that's where the button is. Now, one thing I've noticed also that I was just about to mention is that there is an LED headlight on the front. So when you have this disconnected, there's a bright light right here. So warning, it's going to shine into the camera. And that's actually kind of handy. I actually do like that. So if you're dusting something, or if you're using the crevice tool and you're getting into a corner, then that works great. And since we just talked about that, we'll go ahead and talk about the attachments. Now, depending on what unit you have, your vacuum will probably come with 3 attachments. Now, some models will come with a turbo brush that'll look something like this. Different models have different shaped brushes, but they all work the same way. For this model, this is an air-powered turbo brush, and the build quality on this brush is very bad. It feels very cheap, but it actually works very well. This just pushes in just like this. It's a friction fit. There's no lock, although there is a version that locks in. But most of the accessories are going to be friction fit. And unfortunately, Shark uses their own custom fitting, so you can't use universal attachments, but the attachments from your old Shark will fit this. So there's that. It makes a lot of noise whenever it's spinning up, and that, works fine, but it does work very well. And while this is loud, this does a good job at picking up hair and all sorts of stuff. And I recommend running this on the thick carpet mode. That will cause the brush to spin slower, but it also won't cause the hose to constrict on itself. Because when you run the turbo brush on the carpet or the hard floor mode, which only adjusts the suction, obviously this isn't going to affect this on floors, it actually causes this stretchy hose to collapse in on itself, and that makes it very rigid, which means anytime you're using it on upholstery, you'll end up tugging this over, because this hose is very, very stiff and very cumbersome, although it does stretch out a lot more than the hose on the Apex, and I'll show you that in a sec. So this does not store on board. This is something you would have to store separately. The 2 tools that do store on board are right back here. So you've got a crevice tool right here. Pops on just like that. Pretty typical crevice tool, nothing to say about that. That stores right there. And then right underneath the hose, you have an upholstery tool. Again, pops in like this. This has a swiveling joint right here. And this works pretty well. Again, no real complaints there. It does the job. It has little bleed holes there. There is a brush you can get that attaches to this. In fact, some models have the brush. The brush is just missing on mine. And I honestly found that brush, when I did have one, to not be very effective. So the upholstery part is mainly what you want. There's also some versions of this crevice tool that have a brush that slides on. And if you're wondering what that would look like, it would look a little something like this. So that is the attachments. They work very well. I just wish that they would use their own fitting, but Shark's in too deep now. They've got their own thing kind of working for them, and hey, if it works, it works. So, clips in right up there. Little clip keeps the cord out of the way. Also out of the way of the video, apparently. So, that is that. Now, one thing I will notice is that if I grab the Apex 0M, I can show you a little difference with the hose. So, where the Apex, the hose, is actually a lot stiffer. You can see this hose, it still stretches a good amount, but this hose is built a lot better. So, it doesn't quite stretch as far. So you are going to lose a little bit of extended reach, but the hose is built a lot better. And the good news is, if you buy one of these nowadays, you will actually get this hose instead of this older style hose. But, you know, if yours is a few years old, then you could have this much fatter style hose. That really just depends on luck of the draw and where you get one of these. But if you get one with the new hose, it could have either one of these hoses. So that will just depend on where you get yours from and how old it is. The Shark did update this at one point. Now, I've also mentioned the power lift away feature, and that's pretty interesting. So I'll actually demonstrate that right now in case you want to see how that works. So again, we can press this gray button right here, and that allows you to pull this off. You don't even have to hold it, you can just push it. And now, if I want to go underneath things, I can. Now, in the case of my couch needs to be like an inch more off the ground for me to go all the way underneath. So, it's actually not that much more in my case than with the canister on. Because with the canister on, I can get that far. And then with the power lift away, I can get like maybe half an inch further in. So this isn't the best example of it, but if you have a piece of furniture that's slightly taller than my couch, then this would make the difference in you being able to get underneath it, just like a canister. So you can use that and get underneath things if you would like. Oh, there we go. Oh, well, here we go. I actually just accidentally demonstrated another feature. Well, maybe not. Well, I was going to say, there is an indicator light right here. Again, this plastic. So, there's a brush roll indicator right here on the bottom. And if you jam the brush roller, this will actually turn red and let you know that you need to pull something out. In my case, I jammed something in the roller, and it actually didn't stall it. It just kind of sucked it in. So I sucked up this bag that was underneath the couch. But you can see I actually did manage to get it to go all the way underneath the couch with a little bit of finessing. So in my case, the power lift away feature actually worked really well, and I was able to clean underneath the couch, and you could hear it pick up stuff. So I'm personally not the kind of person that likes canister vacuums, so if you're that type of person, then this style of power lift away might actually be the perfect stopgap between the two, where you can have an upright most of the time, and then have a canister for whenever you want it. Now, the one disadvantage to this design as part of that power lift away is that Shark vacuums, the motor is actually going to be further up on the design. It's not going to be sitting on the floor, which makes a big difference in handling, because this Shark actually weighs the same as the Dyson Ball Total Clean that I just reviewed. Both of these machines weigh 17 pounds. So this Dyson and this Shark both weigh 17 pounds. But the difference in handling is night and day. Because with the Dyson, the motor is inside the ball, and the ball is on the floor. So whenever you're using these two machines, the Shark feels way heavier and way more cumbersome, despite the fact that on paper they're the same weight. So, in my view, the Shark is way harder to maneuver and much more difficult to use, especially for someone like me with a bad back, than the Dyson, because the Dyson has a lower center of gravity, so there's a lot less pressure on your wrist and on your body when you're pushing and pulling the machine. So it may sound like a small detail that most people would overlook, but when you're using these machines side by side, you really notice the difference. Even though the Shark looks like the smaller machine, and in some ways it is, they're the same weight, yes, but the Dyson feels better when you're maneuvering it. So in the case of the Shark, just pushing and pulling this, you have a lot of that weight pulling down on your hand when you're using it. That makes vacuuming a lot more of a chore, especially in power lift-away mode, because in power lift-away mode, this brush roller really likes to run away, especially when you're pulling the machine back. I notice because this doesn't have the weight of the canister on the power head, the brush wants to jump itself forward, which makes it a lot harder to pull back. So it almost is like self-propelled in a ways, but not in a way that helps you when you're pulling the machine back. So when you're pulling the machine back, not only does it make it a lot harder because there's a lot more resistance that you're fighting to pull the machine back when you're pushing and pulling it, but that also means that the suction clamps it down. So when you're pulling it back, you're pulling it back at an angle, and that's causing the head to lift up off the ground, meaning that you could potentially be spitting stuff behind it or not cleaning properly. So there is a lot of issues with that. And that in general just makes using it in the power lift-away mode not very pleasant. But even with all that, you do, again, have the option to use it exclusively in those scenarios where it would be helpful, like getting underneath a bed or something like that. Whereas with the Dyson, even in my case, it's a full bin, so you can tell I've been using this. This Dyson is a lot more simple to maneuver when I'm using it. You can see it's still kind of heavy. Yes, it's not the lightweight model that's, 2 pounds heavier, but, it's still just a lot more simple to push and pull in general than the Shark. And that does make a big difference. Now, of course, in the case of the Dyson, I'm not going to get underneath my couch because the motor for the brush bar and the ball is in the way. So you're not going to be able to get much underneath this, but the sides can still get underneath at least. And you can use the wand and the floor tool to get underneath there. It's just not going to be powered, so there's not going to be the spinning, rotating brush. So, you have ways to work around that with the Dyson, and that's generally the solution that I prefer, but it shouldn't be discarded, the fact that the Shark does have that advantage of having the better superior clean underneath furniture. Now, just like all of the Sharks that you've seen in this video, this Shark is a completely sealed system, or at least that's what Shark claims. So this machine has a Hepa filter, and it is a sealed system. Now, the Dyson that I just showed you is the same way, as is all of these Sharks. So these are bagless vacuums with Hepa filters and sealed systems. Now, what that means is that you do have a Hepa filter on the exhaust of the machine, and you also have a sealed system, meaning that dust will not be escaping the air before it reaches the Hepa filter, which is something that happens with a lot of vacuums, especially cheaper vacuums, and especially older vacuums. If you've ever had an old vacuum where you turned it on and it puffed out a bunch of dust, that's what we're talking about. So the Shark does have a good amount of filters. Now, when it comes to the sealed system, if you're trying to decide between Dyson and Shark for filtration, in my opinion, the hands-down answer is Dyson. And the reason why is because Dyson has the patented cyclonic technology. You notice how Dyson vacuums are multi-cyclonic. There's multiple cyclones right here, multiple cyclones, which means that the air is filtered out much more before it reaches the filter that goes into the motor, which means that the air in general is going to be cleaner as a starting point before it reaches the Hepa filter, which not only means that the air is going to be definitely cleaner when it comes out because there's less of it to work with, but that also means that your filters are going to last much longer. In this shark, you have to maintain the filters very, very frequently. At least the pre-motor filters. You have to wash them all the time. You pretty much have to wash them every time you empty the bin. So there's a lot of maintenance that you need on the shark. Whereas on this Dyson, I filled up this Dyson several times and I still have not had to wash the pre-motor filter. Now on the Dyson, you have the pre-motor filter here and the post-motor filter on the side of the ball. In the shark, it's a little bit different, but it's a similar design. So there's this little trigger right here up on the top. This is the dust cup release. You grab this and you pull off the dust cup. And you can empty the dust cup from both sides. So you mainly empty it from here, but you can also open up the top in order to access this screen and make sure it's clean. You can see in my case there is some debris here, so you want to clear this off every time you empty the bin because you want to make sure this little grate is clean so that way you're getting airflow to the filters. But this is very easy to clean this out, and this cup is definitely a lot easier to clean than Dyson Cyclones. But this you have to clean a lot more often. So there is a trade-off there. You have a lot more maintenance with the shark. So we have a filter right here that we can pull out, and you can see just from the little bit of usage that I've used, this thing is filthy. And this was clean before I started using this. I've only filled the bin on this less than 2 times, and this filter is pretty gross. I could maybe get away with not cleaning it a 3rd time. Shark recommends you clean this every month, which if you assume that you fill a bin, every 2 to 3 weeks, then I would say that's pretty standard for that. So you got to clean these filters very often. There's nothing stopping you from buying an extra set of filters and keeping them aside. This is just a problem with shark vacuums in general, although they have been addressing this recently. There's another filter in here that you also have to wash. So you have to wash both of these at least every month. And again, I recommend maybe washing these every time or every other time you fill the bin. And you got to let these dry for at least 48 hours. And even with washing them that often, you still have to change these about every year because these deteriorate and they don't last very long. So you have to change these filters about every year and wash these filters every month. And then this Hepa filter right here pops out just like this. And this you're going to want to change about every year. This one is well overdue for a change. These are supposed to be white. So you got to change that every year. So about every year you have to change filters on these, whereas with the Dyson you don't usually have to change these filters until about every 4 or 5 years. It really just depends on your usage. So you will have more filter maintenance with the Shark, but that's the price you pay for the setup being a lot more simple and a lot more easy to sort of keep clean. So there is a trade-off there. And this exact setup is very similar on all the Sharks that I just showed and the Sharks that I will recommend as opposed to this machine in the next segment. So the question that many people will be asking at this point is, well, do you recommend the Shark Rotator NV75x? And the answer is no. And it's actually not necessarily to steer you away from the Shark brand, although I would recommend that as well. If you're going to spend $300 on this machine, don't. If you have a Sam's Club membership and you're planning on spending $300 on this machine, spend that $300 on this Dyson Ball Total Clean. You'll have a much better experience 99% of the time. Now, if you're dead set on Shark and you really want something of this style, then I'd recommend this. This is the Shark Navigator Liftaway 0M. This is model ZU560. I recommended this machine a good amount. It cleans just as well as this does, but it doesn't tear up carpet. It has the anti-tangle brush roll, and it's a lot simpler of a machine. Now, there is no powered liftaway on this, but you can get this for less than $200, so you'll be saving a good chunk of change as well. So if you desperately need the powered liftaway feature, then I recommend this variant. So this is the Shark Rotator powered liftaway speed, and I haven't tested this specific one, but you can see it's still under $200 right now, and it has a lot of the features that this Rotator has, but it doesn't have a lot of the drawbacks in regards to the weight, because this is the speed model. So you will be sacrificing some bin capacity, but the vacuum will be a lot lighter weight and a lot more maneuverable and a lot more tolerable to use, especially for most people. So in my opinion, the trade-off is well worth it, and you're saving a good amount of money, and you're actually getting a better experience with a better vacuum. So if you really want a power lift away machine, then that is the way to go. Now, you can also find this Apex 0M for a little under $300 depending on where you shop. So again, I don't recommend this Rotator because if you shop in the right places, you can find the Apex for the same price, which this is 2 generations newer than this, and it's just a much better machine. On this machine, it seems like they fixed that flaw with the power nozzle. You get the dual clean rollers, and there's a lot more benefits to this unit over this Rotator. So I don't recommend this Rotator anymore. There are other options, not only in the Shark line, but also from other brands like Dyson that'll give you better options. Even Hoover and Bissell will give you better options as well. This Rotator, I just can't recommend it unless you happen to get one for free or a ridiculously good deal that it's worth taking the gamble on that design flaw. So anyways, this is Intellitech Studios signing out with my full review of the Shark Rotator. Again, I recommend these machines instead of this. The Apex I haven't reviewed yet, but that review will be coming soon, and I've already reviewed both the Shark and the Dyson, so you can see those reviews as well. So I'm doing a lot of reviews of machines in this price range, and for those of you that are asking about the new Dyson Ball Animal 3, I do plan on getting one of those, as well as the new Shark that is coming out as well. It's just a matter of what time. If I can get these companies to actually send me the products for review, then I can start reviewing them one by one. But if I have to buy them out of my own pocket, then obviously bills got to come first. I don't make enough money on YouTube to both pay the bills and buy a bunch of expensive machines, so I'm going to have to sort of push that along. But I'm going to be doing the best I can to make sure that I get as much content out to you guys so you can make the best informed decision on your vacuum purchase. So hopefully that helps. If you have any questions, be sure to drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Definitely. Sorry if I was a little weird in this video. I'm running on no sleep, so anyways, that is that. My birthday is coming up, so if you'd like to drop a sub on the channel or a like on this video, that'd be greatly appreciated. If not, that's fine too. Anyways, this is Intellitech Studios signing out. I would end this video by showing my lovely cat, but I can't find her anywhere, so she's hiding. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.